Kang Day stood alone at the edge of the massive hall, watching hundreds of aliens move past him like he was invisible. The Galactic Summit Station was the largest structure he had ever seen, floating in space above a planet called Convergence Point. Representatives from 60 different species filled the grand ballroom, their voices creating a strange symphony of clicks, hums, and words in languages he couldn't understand. He adjusted his simple gray suit and tried not to feel small. Everything around him was designed for beings much larger than humans. The ceiling stretched so high above that he could barely see it. The tables were built for creatures with 4 arms, or tentacles, or bodies that shifted like liquid. Day felt like a child who had wandered into a room meant for adults. The other human delegates stood together on the far side of the hall, talking in low voices and pretending they couldn't see him. Ambassador Li Taeyang, the head of Earth's diplomatic mission, had made it very clear that Day was not welcome at their table. 6 months ago, Day had reported Li for accepting bribes from a mining corporation. The report had gone nowhere. Li had too many friends in high places. Instead, Day had been labeled a troublemaker and sent to this summit as punishment, given a badge that marked him as the lowest rank possible. He didn't mind sitting alone. It was better than sitting with people who smiled at your face while planning to stab you in the back. A sudden silence fell over the room. Day looked up and saw why everyone had stopped talking. She was walking through the main entrance, and even among aliens, she was impossible to ignore. Princess Hana of the Velrosian Empire moved like water, graceful and fluid. Her skin looked like it was made of crystal, catching the light and throwing it back in colors that shifted with each step. Right now, her skin glowed a cool blue, which Day had learned meant a Velrosian was calm but disinterested. Her eyes were large and dark, with no visible pupils, giving her an expression that seemed both ancient and eerily young. She wore robes that seemed to float around her body, made from some material that shimmered between silver and purple. 2 guards followed her, their own crystalline skin a duller gray. They were massive, nearly 3 meters tall, with bodies that looked like they were carved from stone. Day had heard stories about the Velrosians. They were one of the oldest and most powerful species in the galaxy. Their empire controlled 17 star systems. They could read minds, or so the rumors said. They had destroyed entire civilizations that refused to bow to them. And they hated outsiders. "Don't even think about it," a voice said beside him. Day turned to see Park Ji-won, one of the human medical researchers attached to the delegation. She was young, probably fresh out of university, with nervous eyes that kept darting around the room. "Ambassador Li sent me to warn you. Stay away from the Velrosians." "I'm already staying away from everyone," Day said. "It's kind of my specialty now." Ji-won didn't smile. "I'm serious. Last year, a diplomat from the Korthan Republic tried to introduce himself to her. She looked at him for 5 seconds, and he collapsed. They said she paralyzed him with her mind. He couldn't move for 3 days. Day watched as Princess Hana surveyed the room with an expression of barely concealed boredom. Aliens from a dozen different species bowed as she passed. She ignored all of them. "She doesn't look that dangerous," Day said, though he wasn't sure he believed it. "That's what makes her dangerous," Ji-won replied. She glanced back at the human delegation, where Lee was watching them with narrowed eyes. "Look, I have to go. Just try not to cause any more problems, okay? Some of us still want careers after this summit ends." She hurried away, leaving Day alone again. He sighed and made his way to the human section of the banquet hall. The tables were arranged by species, and within each species, they were arranged by rank. The highest ranking delegates sat in the center, close to the raised platform where the Galactic Council members would speak. The lowest ranking delegates sat at the edges, as far from importance as possible. Day's table was in the corner, practically hidden behind a decorative pillar. There were 5 seats, but he was the only one assigned to it. The other low-ranking humans had apparently requested different seating to avoid him. He sat down and looked at the empty chairs around him, feeling a familiar weight settle in his chest. This was fine. He had expected this. He pulled out his datapad and started reviewing the summit schedule, trying to focus on something productive. The room gradually filled with delegates. Servers began bringing out food, though Day noticed they seemed confused about what to serve him. Human dietary requirements were still relatively new to most species. He ended up with something that looked like purple grain and smelled like mint. He poked at it with his fork and hoped it wouldn't kill him. Music started playing, some kind of ceremonial piece that sounded like wind chimes mixed with whale songs. The council members took their places on the platform. Ambassador Lee stood with the other high-ranking delegates, laughing at something a reptilian ambassador said. None of them looked in Day's direction. Then, something happened that made every being in the room turn their heads. Princess Hana was walking through the tables, moving past empty seats next to powerful ambassadors and military commanders. Her guards followed her, looking confused. The room went completely silent. Even the music seemed to fade away. She walked directly toward the human section. Day's heart started beating faster. Was she coming to confront Ambassador Lee about something? Had Earth offended the Velrosian Empire without knowing it? But she walked past Lee without even glancing at him. She moved past the tables of senior diplomats, past the military advisors, past everyone who mattered. She stopped at Day's table in the corner. For a long moment, she just stood there, looking down at him with those dark, pupilless eyes. Her crystalline skin shifted colors, moving from blue to something like violet, then to shades he didn't have names for. Her guards stood a few steps behind her, their hands moving to their weapons. Every being in the hall was watching now. Day could feel hundreds of eyes on him, could sense the shock and confusion radiating from every direction. His mind raced. Should he stand? Should he bow? Should he run? Princess Hana pulled out the chair directly across from him and sat down. The scrape of the chair against the floor was the loudest sound Day had ever heard. She folded her hands on the table in front of her, her skin now glowing a warm gold that he had never seen a Velrosian display before. She tilted her head slightly, studying him like he was a puzzle she was trying to solve. Then she spoke, and her voice was clear and precise, with an accent that reminded him of home. "Tell me," she said in perfect Korean, "why do you sit alone among your own kind?" Day's mouth went dry. His brain struggled to form words. Somewhere behind him, he heard Ambassador Lee make a choking sound. The Velrosian guards looked like they might attack at any moment. The entire summit had frozen, waiting to see what would happen next. He had two choices. He could lie, give some diplomatic answer that meant nothing, or he could tell the truth and see where it led. Day had never been good at lying anyway. "Because I made powerful people angry by telling the truth," he said quietly. "And in my experience, Princess, the truth is the fastest way to eat alone." For 3 heartbeats, nothing happened. Then Princess Hana did something that no one expected. She laughed. It was a real laugh, bright and genuine, and her skin flashed through a dozen colors like a rainbow exploding across crystal. The sound echoed through the silent hall, and Day realized he might have just changed the course of human history. He just wasn't sure if he had saved it or doomed it. The golden glow on Princess Hana's skin slowly faded to a soft green as her laughter died down. Day sat frozen in his chair, very aware that every being in the massive hall was staring at their table. He could feel the weight of their attention like a physical pressure on his shoulders. "You speak with honesty," Hana said, still in Korean. Her voice carried a strange quality, like she was speaking normally, but somehow her words reached him more clearly than they should. That is rare in places like this. Most beings tell me what they think I want to hear, or they tell me nothing at all because they are too afraid. "I'm probably afraid too," Day admitted. I'm just not good at hiding it with pretty words. Her skin flickered with amusement, patches of light dancing across her crystalline surface. Your language is interesting. Korean, yes? I have studied 73 languages from across the galaxy. Yours is one of the few that feels warm when spoken. Most languages sound cold to my ears. Day didn't know what to say to that. He glanced past Hana and saw her guards standing rigid, their hands still near their weapons. Beyond them, Ambassador Lee looked like he might faint. The other human delegates were whispering frantically to each other. Should I be worried? Day asked, gesturing slightly toward the guards. They look like they want to turn me into a pile of ash. Hana glanced back at her guards without any concern. They are confused. I have never chosen to sit with anyone before at these gatherings. They think you might be a threat. She turned back to him, and her dark eyes seemed to look right through him. Are you a threat, Kang Day? The use of his full name startled him. You know who I am? I know everything about everyone at this summit, she said simply. It is expected of me. You are 32 years old, born in Seoul, educated in political science and history. You worked for Earth's diplomatic corps for 7 years before reporting corruption in your own delegation. You were punished for this honesty by being sent here where you have no real power or purpose. She paused. Did I miss anything? Just that I make terrible first impressions, Day said, trying to keep his voice light, even though his heart was racing. Though apparently not terrible enough, since you're still sitting here. I am sitting here because you are the first being in 3 days who has not tried to use me for something, Hana replied. Her skin shifted to a deeper blue. Do you know what it is like, Kang Day, to enter a room and know that every creature there is calculating how to manipulate you? Some want alliances, some want marriages, some simply want to say they spoke with Velrosian royalty. None of them see me. They see a tool, a symbol, a prize. Day understood that, feeling better than she might have expected. Is that why you came to this summit? To be used by people who don't see you? I came because my father commanded it, she said, and there was something sharp in her voice now. I am the 7th princess of the Velrosian Empire. I have 6 older siblings who are more powerful, more politically connected, more everything. I am kept around for one purpose, to be married off, to seal an alliance that benefits my family. This summit is simply another market where I am the product being displayed. A server approached their table nervously, a being that looked like a floating jellyfish with dozens of delicate tentacles. It placed plates of food in front of them, moving as quickly as possible before retreating. Day looked down at his plate and saw something that might have been meat, or might have been a plant. It was hard to tell with alien food. Hana picked up an eating utensil that looked like a crystal wand and gestured at Day's plate. The red sections are safe for human consumption. The blue parts will make you sick. The servers here are not very familiar with your species' needs. Thank you, Day said, carefully pushing the blue sections to the side. Though I have to ask, why are you telling me all this? We just met. I'm nobody important, and according to everyone here, your people hate outsiders. My people hate many things, Hana said quietly. We have made hatred into an art form over thousands of years. It is easier to hate than to admit we are afraid. Afraid of what? She was quiet for a moment, her skin cycling through several colors that Day couldn't interpret. Around them, the other delegates had slowly started returning to their own conversations, though Day noticed many of them kept glancing at his table. You know about our telepathy? Hana asked. I've heard stories. You can read minds, control thoughts, things like that. The stories exaggerate, but the core is true. We Velrosians can sense the thoughts and emotions of most species. It is not quite mind reading, but close enough. We hear the galaxy like a constant scream of voices, all talking at once, all demanding attention. She looked directly at him, except with humans. Day frowned. What do you mean? When I look at you, I hear nothing. Your thoughts are a wall I cannot pass. At first, my people believed this meant humans were primitive, that your minds were too simple to sense. But we were wrong. Her skin glowed brighter, excitement coloring her words. Your minds are not simple. They are chaotic in a way we cannot predict. You feel too many things at once. Think in too many directions. To my telepathy, humans are like storms. Beautiful, powerful, and completely impossible to control. Day processed this information slowly. So, when you sit near me, you don't hear anything? I hear silence, Hana said, and there was something like longing in her voice. For the first time in days, I hear blessed silence. Do you understand what a gift that is? To not be bombarded by the greed, fear, and schemes of everyone around me? He was starting to understand why she had chosen his table. I'm like a quiet room in a noisy building. Exactly, she smiled, and the expression made her look younger, less like an untouchable princess and more like a person who was tired of carrying a heavy weight. You asked why I am telling you this? The answer is simple. You cannot use this information against me because you have no power. And I find that I am tired of talking to people who only see me as a piece in their political games. Day picked at his food, thinking about everything she had said. You know, where I come from, we have a saying. If you sit at a table with a stranger and share your troubles, you both leave lighter. A wise saying. We also say that strangers make the best friends because they have no reason to lie to you yet. Hana's skin flashed gold again, that same color of amused surprise. Your species is strange, Kang Dae. You are physically weak compared to most beings in this galaxy. You have no natural armor, no telepathy, no enhanced senses. You live such short lives. And yet, you have spread across multiple star systems in just a few centuries. Do you know why? Because we're too stubborn to know when we're beaten, Day suggested. She laughed again, and this time the sound felt easier, more natural. Perhaps, or perhaps because you understand something that my people have forgotten. Connection is not weakness. Vulnerability is not defeat. One of her guards stepped forward, speaking in a language that sounded like crystals chiming against each other. Hana's expression shifted, her skin cooling to a formal blue. I must go, she said, standing gracefully. There are rituals I must observe, greetings I must give. But I would like to continue this conversation if you are willing. Day stood as well, his mind still trying to catch up with everything that had happened. I'm willing, though I should warn you, talking to me might not be good for your reputation. My reputation is already decided, Hana said. One more scandal will hardly matter. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small crystal device. Tomorrow, at the 8th hour, there is a place called the Restricted Gardens. It is reserved for royalty and high council members. I will arrange for you to have access. She placed the device on the table between them. It glowed softly, pulsing with an inner light. This will allow you to pass the security barriers, she explained. If you choose to come, we can speak more freely there. If you choose not to come, simply leave the device in your quarters and I will understand. And if I do come, then perhaps we both find something neither of us expected. She inclined her head slightly, a gesture of respect that made her guards stiffen in shock. Until tomorrow, Kang Dae. She turned and walked away, her guards following close behind. The crowd parted for her automatically, aliens of every shape and size stepping back to let her pass. Within moments, she had disappeared through one of the grand doorways. Day stood alone at his table, staring at the crystal device she had left behind. Around him, the noise of the summit slowly returned to normal. He could feel people watching him, could sense the questions and confusion radiating from every direction. His communicator buzzed. A message from Ambassador Lee appeared on the screen. My office. Now. Day picked up the crystal device and held it up to the light. It was warm in his palm, and he could see tiny patterns moving inside it like living fractals. He had a choice to make. He could return the device, apologize to Ambassador Lee, and fade back into obscurity. It would be safe, it would be smart, or he could go to the restricted gardens tomorrow and see where this strange conversation led. Day thought about sitting alone in the corner, invisible to everyone who mattered. He thought about Princess Hana, sitting in her own kind of isolation, despite being surrounded by power and privilege. He put the crystal device in his pocket and walked toward Ambassador Lee's office. He had no idea what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time in months, he felt something other than resignation. He felt curious, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit hopeful. The restricted gardens were nothing like Day expected. He had imagined something grand and alien, full of plants from distant worlds that glowed in the dark or sang when touched. Instead, he found himself standing in a space that felt almost Earth-like, with flowering trees and stone paths that wound between carefully tended beds of vegetation. The crystal device Hana had given him had worked perfectly. When he approached the security barrier, it had scanned the device and allowed him through without question. Now he stood alone in the gardens, watching early morning light filter through a transparent dome far above. This section of the station rotated to create artificial day and night cycles, and right now it was designed to look like dawn. "You came!" a voice said behind him. Day turned and saw Princess Hana emerging from behind a cluster of trees. She wore simpler robes today, still elegant but less formal. Her skin glowed a soft morning blue, peaceful and calm. Without her guards looming nearby, she looked smaller somehow, more approachable. "I almost didn't," Day admitted. "Ambassador Lee spent 3 hours yesterday explaining all the ways I could start an interstellar war by talking to you." Hana walked past him down the stone path, gesturing for him to follow. "Ambassador Lee is afraid of his own shadow. I have read his surface thoughts. He cares more about his position than about his people or his mission." "That's pretty accurate," Day said, falling into step beside her. "Though I have to ask, is it true what they say? That you paralyzed a diplomat last year just by looking at him?" "Yes," Hana said simply. "Though the circumstances were different than the rumors suggest. The Korthan diplomat did not simply introduce himself. He grabbed my arm and tried to pull me toward his delegation leader. Among my people, uninvited physical contact is a serious offense. My response was instinctive self-defense, not casual cruelty." She led him around a corner, and Day stopped in surprise. Spread before him was a section of garden filled with flowers he recognized. Roses. Dozens of varieties in every color, climbing up trellises and spilling over stone walls. The sight was so unexpected that for a moment he forgot he was on a space station orbiting an alien world. "These are from Earth," Day said, moving closer to examine the flowers. "How did you get them?" 20 years ago, your planet sent a diplomatic gift to the Galactic Council. Seeds and plants from your homeworld, a gesture of peace and openness. Most of the council members discarded them or gave them to their servants. I kept mine." Hana reached out and touched one of the roses gently, her crystalline fingers, careful not to damage the delicate petals. "I have tended them myself ever since. No servants, no gardeners. Just me and these small living things that ask nothing of me except water and sunlight." Day watched her interact with the flowers and saw something he hadn't expected. Genuine care. The untouchable princess who could paralyze people with her mind was carefully checking the leaves for disease, adjusting the soil around the roots. "Why roses?" he asked. "Because they have thorns," Hana said. "They are beautiful, but they protect themselves." "I find that admirable." She straightened and turned to face him. "You asked yesterday why humans have survived in this galaxy despite your physical limitations. I have thought about this question for many years. Would you like to know my theory?" "I'm listening." Hana gestured at the roses around them. Most species in the galaxy evolved one primary advantage. The Velrosians developed telepathy. The Korthan Republic evolved armored skin that can withstand extreme temperatures. The Silicate Collective exists as networked consciousness, each individual connected to the whole. Every species built their civilization around one great strength. And humans? Day prompted. Humans have no single great strength. Your bodies are fragile, your lifespans are short, your minds resist telepathic contact but offer nothing in return. By every logical measure, you should have been conquered or destroyed within decades of achieving space travel. She picked up a small watering container and moved to the next planet. But you survived. More than survived. You thrived. Do you know why? Day thought about it. Because we adapt? Adaptation is part of it, but not the whole answer. I have watched your species carefully, studied your history, analyzed your patterns. The truth is simpler and more profound than adaptation. She set down the watering container and looked at him directly. Humans survive because you refuse to do it alone. When faced with impossible odds, you do not try to become stronger individuals. You become a stronger group. She walked to a stone bench beneath a flowering tree and sat down, inviting him to join her. Day sat, leaving a respectful distance between them. My people conquered 17 star systems. Hana continued. We did it through superior telepathic abilities and military force. We are powerful as individuals, and we assumed that made us powerful as a species. But we were wrong. Her skin darkened slightly. Our telepathy is killing us. Day felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? The same ability that made us conquerors is now our curse. As Velrosians age, our telepathic sensitivity increases. We begin to hear too much, feel too much. The thoughts of others become overwhelming. Many of my people go mad before they reach what you would call middle age. Those who survive long enough to be truly old often choose to end their lives rather than continue experiencing the mental anguish. That's horrible, Day said quietly. I had no idea. No one does. We hide it well. To show weakness in this galaxy is to invite attack. Hana's skin flickered through several colors. Emotions she was struggling to control. I am seventh in line for the throne, Kang Day. Do you know what that means? It means 6 of my siblings have stronger telepathy than me. 6 siblings who will likely go mad or die before they can rule. My family considers me weak, but my weakness might be the only reason I survive long enough to see my 40th year. Day processed this information slowly. Have you looked for a cure? We have searched for 300 years. We have conquered worlds, hoping to find species with knowledge that could help us. We have studied every form of biology, chemistry, and neural science in known space. She turned to look at him. Until humans arrived, we had found nothing. But your species' resistance to telepathy is not just immunity. It is a completely different neural structure. Your brains are chaos, where ours are order. And chaos cannot be infected by the same disease that kills order. Understanding began to dawn on Day. You think humans might have the answer. I think humans might be the answer, Hana corrected, but studying your neurology would require cooperation between our peoples. It would require trust, openness, and the willingness to see each other as equals rather than competitors. Her expression turned bitter. All things that my father's empire considers weakness. And my people aren't much better, Day admitted. We're too busy trying to prove we belong in this galaxy to risk real cooperation with anyone. They sat in silence for a moment, watching light play across the roses. Somewhere in the distance, Day could hear the hum of the station's systems, the artificial heartbeat of this place where thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds pretended they all wanted peace. I stole something, Hana said suddenly. Last night, after our conversation, I accessed my family's private medical archives. I copied genetic data, neural scans, and research documents. Everything I could find about our telepathic degradation. She reached into her robes and pulled out a small data chip. This information could help your scientists understand what is happening to my people. But it could also be seen as treason. I am giving you state secrets from one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. Day stared at the data chip, understanding the weight of what she was offering. Why? Why risk this? Because I am tired of watching my people die in silence. Because I am tired of pride being more important than survival. And because you are the first being I have met in years who looked at me and saw a person instead of a political tool. She held out the chip. Will you help me? Day reached out slowly and took the chip. It was cool in his palm, smaller than his thumb, and it contained secrets that could change everything. If I take this to our medical researchers, it will cause problems. Big problems. Your empire will be furious. My superiors will panic. Everyone will want to use this information for political advantage. I know. We could both be arrested, or worse. I know. Day closed his hand around the chip. I know someone, Park Ji-won. She's a neuroscientist with our delegation. She's young and idealistic and hasn't learned to be cynical yet. If anyone can look at this data and see the science instead of the politics, it's her. Hana's skin glowed brighter, hope coloring her crystalline surface. You will do this? I'll do it quietly. No official channels, no reports to Ambassador Lee. Just one researcher looking at data that mysteriously appeared. He looked at her seriously. But you need to understand something. If this works, if we find something in your data that could help, it won't stay quiet forever. Eventually, people will find out. And when they do, both of our peoples will have to decide if cooperation is more important than pride. And if they decide pride is more important, Day thought about sitting alone in the corner of the banquet hall. He thought about Ambassador Lee and all the other politicians who chose safety over doing the right thing. He thought about 6 siblings slowly going mad because their strength had become their weakness. Then we'll deal with that when it happens, he said. But we can't help anyone if we don't try. Hana stood up, and her skin shifted through a rainbow of colors. Joy and fear and hope all mixed together. Thank you, Kangdae. You do not know what this means to me. I think I'm starting to understand. He stood as well, tucking the data chip carefully into his pocket. I should go. The longer I stay here, the more attention it will draw. Wait, Hana said. She moved closer to him, within arm's reach. Among her people, this was significant. There is something you should know. When Velrosians make physical contact with another being, it is a gesture of deep trust. We do not touch those we do not respect. Before Day could respond, she reached out and placed her crystalline hand on his shoulder. Her touch was cool and smooth, and up close, he could see light moving beneath her skin, like living starlight. The moment lasted only a few seconds, but Day knew he would remember it forever. Then she stepped back, her skin glowing a warm gold. Go carefully, Kangdae. We have started something that cannot be stopped. He nodded and turned to leave, following the stone path back toward the garden entrance. When he glanced back, she was standing among the roses, watching him go. She raised one hand in farewell, and the morning light caught her crystalline skin, making her look like a figure from a dream. Day walked through the security barrier and back into the normal corridors of the station, the data chip heavy in his pocket. He had come to this summit expecting nothing. He had been ready to serve his time in disgrace and then return to Earth with his career in ruins. Now, he was carrying secrets that could save a civilization or start a war, and he had absolutely no idea which one it would be. Finding Park Ji-won was easier than Day expected. She was in the human delegation's research wing, hunched over a holographic display showing complex neural patterns. The lab was small, tucked away in a corner of the station that clearly wasn't designed with humans in mind. Everything was too tall, too wide, built for beings much larger than them. Doctor? Park, Day said from the doorway. Jiwon jumped, nearly knocking over a container of samples. She spun around, her eyes wide with surprise. Dae, what are you doing here? I thought Lee banned you from the research wing after yesterday. He did. I'm breaking a lot of rules today. He stepped inside and let the door slide shut behind him. I need your help with something. Something that could get us both in serious trouble. Jiwon's expression shifted from surprise to concern. This is about the Velrosian princess, isn't it? Everyone's talking about what happened at the banquet. Lee is furious. He thinks you're trying to sabotage the entire human delegation. Lee thinks everyone is trying to sabotage him. It's his natural state of being. Dae moved closer, lowering his voice even though they were alone. I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly. Did you become a xenobiologist because you wanted to help people, or because you wanted a safe career? The question caught her off guard. She blinked several times, processing it. That's a strange question. It's an important one. Jiwon turned back to her display, but she wasn't looking at the data anymore. When I was 12, my grandmother died from a disease that could have been cured if we'd had access to Karathi medical technology. But the Karathi don't share their knowledge with species they consider primitive. I watched my grandmother suffer for 8 months because someone decided humans weren't worth helping. She looked back at him. I became a xenobiologist because I never want another family to go through what mine did. I want to bridge the gaps between species, find common ground in our biology, help us understand each other. Dae pulled out the data chip Hana had given him. Then I need you to look at this, and I need you to promise that what you find stays between us until we decide together what to do with it. Jiwon stared at the chip. What is it? Velrosian genetic data, medical research, information about a disease that's killing their entire species. He placed it on her desk. It was given to me by someone who is risking everything to save her people. If you look at this, you're taking the same risk. Where did you get this? Jiwon whispered. From someone who believes humans might be able to help? Dae met her eyes. I won't lie to you. If this gets out before we're ready, it could destroy both of our careers. It could damage human-Velrosian relations. It could end very badly for everyone involved. But it could also save millions of lives. Jiwon picked up the chip, turning it over in her hands. Lee will lose his mind if he finds out. Probably, we could be sent back to Earth in disgrace. Very likely. She was quiet for a long moment, and Dae could see her wrestling with the decision. Then, she inserted the chip into her display, and holographic data exploded into the air around them. Complex genetic sequences, neural maps, medical reports, in Velrosian script that the translation software struggled to interpret. Oh my god, Jiwon breathed, her eyes scanning the data rapidly. This is incredible. This is detailed cellular research spanning centuries. Do you know how valuable this is? I'm starting to get an idea. She manipulated the display, pulling up different sections, comparing data sets. Her fingers moved with practice speed, and Dae could see her mind working at full capacity. This shows progressive telepathic neural degradation. The same structures that allow them to sense thoughts become oversensitized with age. It's like their brains develop more and more receivers, but no way to filter the signals. She pulled up another file. They've tried everything. Chemical treatments, neural blockers, genetic modification. Nothing works because they're treating the symptoms instead of understanding the root cause. Can you figure out the root cause? Maybe. If I had human neural data to compare against. She turned to him with growing excitement. Dae, humans are immune to telepathic interference. If I could understand why, I might be able to find a connection. Our resistance and their degradation might be two sides of the same evolutionary path. How long would that take? Days, maybe weeks. I'd need to work carefully, cross-reference human and Velrosian neurology, run simulations. She paused. and I'd need more data, human data. Use mine, they said immediately. Run whatever scans you need. Just keep it quiet. Jiwon nodded slowly, already planning her approach. Then, reality seemed to catch up with her, and worry crossed her face. Day, if I find something, we can't keep it secret forever. This kind of discovery should be shared with the entire medical community, both human and Velrosian. I know, but first, we need to find out if there's actually anything to share. Work on it, see what you discover. Then, we'll figure out the next steps together. She saved the data to an isolated drive and removed the chip, handing it back to him. You need to keep this somewhere safe. If Lee or the Velrosian security forces find it, they'll want to know where it came from. Day pocketed the chip. I'll be careful. And Day? Jiwon looked at him seriously. Thank you for trusting me with this, for giving me a chance to do something that actually matters. He left the lab feeling a strange mixture of hope and anxiety. Things were in motion now, forces that he couldn't control or predict. All he could do was trust that Jiwon would find something useful, and that whatever happened next, they would face it together. The next 3 days passed in a tense blur. Day attended the official summit sessions, listening to delegates argue about trade routes and territorial disputes. Everything felt hollow and meaningless compared to what he and Jiwon were working on in secret. He saw Princess Hana twice during those days, always from a distance. She never approached him, never acknowledged him publicly, but each time their eyes met across a crowded room, her skin would flash gold for just a moment before returning to its formal blue. Jiwon worked around the clock, sleeping in the lab, running scan after scan on Day's neural patterns. She compared human and Velrosian data, looking for connections, searching for answers in the complex web of genetics and neurology. On the 4th day, she sent him an urgent message. Found something. Come immediately. Use the maintenance corridors. Day's heart raced as he made his way through the station's service passages, avoiding the main corridors where he might be seen. When he reached the lab, Jiwon looked exhausted but excited, her eyes bright despite the dark circles under them. Tell me, Day said. She pulled up a split holographic display, human brain structure on one side and Velrosian on the other. Okay, this is going to sound crazy, but I need you to hear me out. Humans and Velrosians share a common evolutionary ancestor. Day stared at her. That's impossible. We evolved on planets thousands of light years apart. I know it sounds impossible, but the genetic evidence is clear. Millions of years ago, there was a precursor species that seeded both Earth and the Velrosian homeworld. That species had the basic neural structure that could support telepathy, but the two worlds developed differently. She manipulated the display, highlighting specific neural pathways. On the Velrosian homeworld, evolution favored telepathic development. Their brains became more organized, more structured, perfect for sending and receiving thoughts. But that organization made them vulnerable to overload. It's like building a city with perfectly straight roads. Efficient, but if too much traffic comes through, the whole system breaks down. And humans? Day asked. Human evolution went the opposite direction. We developed highly chaotic neural patterns. Our brains are messy, inefficient, full of redundant pathways and contradictory signals. We're terrible at telepathy because our thoughts are too disorganized to transmit clearly. But that chaos protects us. It's like having a city with winding streets and multiple routes. Traffic never flows smoothly, but the system never completely breaks down either. Day was beginning to understand. So our resistance and their degradation are both responses to the same evolutionary pressure. Exactly. And here's the breakthrough. Jiwon pulled up a new display showing complex molecular structures. I found a protein in human neural tissue that doesn't exist in Velrosians. This protein acts like a buffer, absorbing excess neural activity and distributing it across multiple pathways. It's what allows our brains to handle chaos without burning out. Can it be synthesized? Yes. and theoretically, it could be introduced to Velrosian neural tissue. It wouldn't give them human-style chaos, but it might give them enough flexibility to handle their increasing telepathic sensitivity without degradation. She looked at him with barely contained excitement. Day, this could work. This could actually save them. Before Day could respond, the lab door exploded inward. 5 Velrosian guards rushed in, their crystalline bodies glowing an angry red. Behind them came more security forces. These ones, human. Led by a grim-faced officer, Day, recognized as part of Ambassador Lee's personal detail. Kang Day, the human officer said, you are under arrest for espionage and theft of classified information. Dr. Park Ji-won, you are also under arrest as an accomplice. Ji-won went pale, but Day stepped in front of her protectively. On whose authority? On the authority of the Galactic Council and the Velrosian Empire. One of the Velrosian guards said, its voice like grinding stones. The data you possess was stolen from the Royal Archives. You will surrender it immediately and submit to interrogation. How did you find out? Ji-won whispered. Your isolation protocols were good, but not perfect, the human officer said. The Velrosian security forces detected unusual data patterns matching their stolen files. They traced them here. The lead Velrosian guard moved forward, reaching for the data storage unit. But before it could touch the device, a voice rang out from the doorway. Stop. Princess Hana stood in the entrance, flanked by 2 guards of her own. Her skin glowed with authority, cycling through colors that spoke of royal command. Every Velrosian in the room immediately froze. Princess, the lead guard said, confusion evident in its tone. These criminals have stolen royal data. They must be arrested. They have stolen nothing, Hana said coldly. I gave them that data, by my authority as a princess of the Velrosian Empire. The silence that followed was absolute. The human officer looked between Hana and Day, clearly trying to understand what was happening. The Velrosian guards stood paralyzed, caught between their duty and their princess's words. Your Highness, one of the Velrosian guards said carefully, the data from the Royal Medical Archives is classified at the highest level. Sharing it with outsiders is forbidden by imperial law. Then arrest me as well, Hana said, walking into the room to stand beside Day. I am the criminal you seek. These humans were only trying to help save my people from a disease that is slowly destroying us. If that is a crime worthy of arrest, then I will face the consequences alongside them. The Velrosian guards looked at each other, completely at a loss. Arresting a royal princess was unthinkable, but allowing the situation to continue was equally impossible. Into this frozen moment, Ambassador Lee arrived, pushing his way through the crowd. What in the name of Earth is going on here? Ambassador, the human officer began, but Day cut him off. We found a cure, he said loudly, his voice carrying through the room. Dr. Park has found a possible treatment for Velrosian telepathic degradation, a treatment based on human neurology. That's what this is about. Not espionage, not politics, medicine. Lee's face went through several expressions before settling on calculating interest. A cure? Are you certain? Theoretically sound, Ji-won said, finding her voice despite her fear. It would need testing and refinement, but the foundation is solid. Humans and Velrosians share an evolutionary connection that makes treatment possible. The room erupted in confused conversation. Guards arguing with each other, the human officer trying to contact his superiors, Lee demanding more information from Ji-won. Through it all, Hana stood beside Day, her skin glowing with determination. This is not over, she said quietly to him. This is only the beginning. Day looked around at the chaos they had unleashed and realized she was right. They had opened a door that couldn't be closed. Everything that happened next would depend on whether the galaxy chose cooperation over control, hope over fear. He just hoped they had made the right choice. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 6 hours after the confrontation in the lab. Day found himself standing in the center of the Grand Chamber, feeling smaller than he ever had before. Thousands of beings filled the tiered seating, representatives from every major species in known space. Above him, the council members sat on their elevated platform, ancient and powerful creatures who had guided galactic civilization for centuries. Day stood alone at first, but then Hana took her place beside him. Her skin glowed a defiant gold, and she stood with her head high despite the whispers and shocked murmurs that rippled through the crowd. Behind them, Jiwon stood with several other human scientists, clutching her datapad like a shield. Ambassador Lee sat with the human delegation, his face carefully neutral. He had spent the last several hours in emergency meetings with Earth's government, and Day still wasn't sure which side the ambassador would take when it mattered. The head of the Galactic Council, a being that looked like living starlight contained in a vaguely humanoid form, raised one luminous hand for silence. We gather to address a matter of unprecedented complexity. Princess Hana of the Velrosian Empire stands accused of sharing classified imperial data with an outside species. Kang Day of Earth and Doctor, Park Jiwon stand accused of espionage and theft of said data. However, new information has come to light regarding the nature and purpose of these actions. We will hear all parties before judgment is rendered. A Velrosian official stepped forward, his skin dark red with anger. The facts are simple, High Council. Royal medical data was stolen and shared with outsiders. This is a clear violation of imperial law and galactic security protocols. The criminals must be punished, including Princess Hana, if she truly authorized this treason. Murmurs of agreement came from several sections of the chamber. Many species had their own secrets they wanted to protect, and the idea of classified data being shared freely made them uncomfortable. Then, Ambassador Lee stood up. Every human in the room turned to look at him, and Day felt his stomach tighten. This was the moment that would determine everything. High Council, Lee said, his voice carrying through the chamber. I must speak in defense of my delegate and our research team. Shock rippled through the human section. Day had expected Lee to throw him to the wolves to save his own position, but the ambassador continued, his voice growing stronger. For months, I have served as Earth's representative to this council, trying to prove that humanity deserves a place among the galactic community. I have followed every rule, obeyed every protocol, and swallowed my pride more times than I can count. And what has it gained us? We are still treated as primitive newcomers, barely tolerated and never respected. Lee walked down from the human section, moving to stand near Day. But Kang Day did something I was too afraid to do. He saw a person suffering and chose to help, regardless of politics or protocol. He risked everything for the chance to save lives. And now I must ask this council a simple question. Is that a crime? The Velrosian official started to respond, but Lee held up his hand. I am not finished. Dr. Park has made a discovery that could revolutionize our understanding of cross-species neurology. More importantly, she has found a potential cure for a disease that is killing one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. Yes, the data was obtained through irregular channels. Yes, protocols were broken, but would any of the species represented here, stand in this chamber and tell me that saving millions of lives is less important than protecting bureaucratic procedures? Silence followed his words. Day stared at Lee in shock, hardly recognizing the man who had spent months undermining him. Then Princess Hana spoke, her voice clear and unwavering. I shared that data because my people are dying. Every day, more Velrosians succumb to telepathic degradation. Every day, families watch their loved ones lose themselves to madness. My father's empire is built on the illusion of strength, but that illusion is crumbling. We need help, but our pride prevents us from asking for it. She turned to face the Velrosian section of the chamber. I am seventh in line for the throne. I was never supposed to matter. But perhaps that is why I can see clearly what my siblings cannot. Strength is not refusing to admit weakness. Strength is having the courage to accept help when it is offered. An older Velrosian stood up in the audience, his skin marked with the distinctive patterns of extreme age. The princess speaks of things she does not fully understand. The telepathic degradation is a private matter for the Velrosian people to handle. We do not need the charity of lesser species. Lesser species? Ji-won's voice rang out, surprising everyone, including herself. She stepped forward, her datapad held high. You call us lesser? But we found in days what your entire medical establishment could not find in centuries. We found the connection between human resistance to telepathy and Velrosian degradation. We found the protein that could save your people. And we found it because we were willing to look at humans and Velrosians as equals instead of competitors. She activated her datapad, and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber, showing the research she had compiled. Genetic sequences, neural patterns, treatment proposals. This is not charity, Ji-won continued, her voice gaining confidence. This is cooperation. This is what happens when species stop worrying about who is superior and start focusing on how we can help each other. Yes, humans are physically weak by your standards. Yes, we are young in galactic terms. But we have something valuable to offer, and we chose to offer it freely because it was the right thing to do. More council members began examining the data, some projecting it into their own specialized viewing devices. Excited murmurs spread through the scientific sections of the audience. Whatever else happened, the research itself was undeniable. The head of the council raised his hand again for silence. The research will be examined by our medical experts, but we must still address the matter of unauthorized data sharing and the violation of imperial protocols. Then I propose a trade, a new voice said. Everyone turned to see a figure entering the chamber. He was Velrosian, but older and more imposing than any Day had seen before. His skin displayed colors so deep and complex that they seemed to contain entire galaxies. The air around him shimmered with barely contained telepathic power. Father, Hana whispered, her skin paling to almost white. Emperor Valdris of the Velrosian Empire walked slowly down the central aisle, and every being in the chamber instinctively made way for him. He had not left his homeworld in over a century, and his appearance here was unprecedented. He stopped in front of Hana and Day, studying them both with ancient eyes. My daughter believes I sent her to this summit as punishment, to display her like a prize for political marriages. She is partially correct, but she does not understand the full truth. The Emperor turned to address the entire council. The Velrosian Empire is dying. Not quickly, not dramatically, but certainly. Each generation of my people grows more powerful in telepathy and more fragile in mind. In another 200 years, there will be no Velrosians left who can maintain sanity past the age of 40. I have spent decades searching for a solution, sending expeditions to every corner of known space, consulting with every scientific mind in my empire. We found nothing. He looked back at Hana. I sent my seventh daughter to this summit because she is the only one of my children who can see humans as allies rather than tools. I needed someone to break through our pride, to risk everything for the chance at salvation. I am only sorry that the burden fell on the child I love most. Hana's skin flashed through a dozen colors, emotions overwhelming her carefully maintained control. You wanted this? I hoped for it, the Emperor said gently. I could not order it, could not plan it, because that would defeat its purpose. It needed to be real, a genuine connection between species. My agents informed me when you gave the data to the humans, and I watched to see what would happen. You did not disappoint me. He turned back to the council. Here is my proposal. Earth surrenders Kang Day for justice, according to Velrosian law. In exchange, humanity receives a permanent seat on the High Council and full access to Velrosian technology and resources. The chamber erupted in chaos. The human delegation looked torn between celebration and horror. The Velrosians seemed confused by their emperor's offer. Other species began shouting questions and objections. But Day barely heard any of it. He was focused on the emperor's words, surrender for justice. That could mean anything from imprisonment to execution. His hands began to shake. Hana stepped between her father and Day, her skin blazing with protective gold. No, I will not allow this. Day has done nothing wrong. He violated our laws, the emperor said calmly. He accepted stolen data, worked with it secretly, put imperial security at risk. By our law, these crimes carry severe punishment. Then you must punish me as well, Hana said. I gave him the data. I initiated everything. If he faces justice, I stand beside him. As do I, Jiwan said, moving to stand with them. I analyzed the data. I created the treatment proposal. If crimes were committed, we all committed them together. Ambassador Li stepped forward as well. And as the head of Earth's delegation, I take responsibility for the actions of my people. If anyone faces punishment, it should be me. More humans began to stand, then some aliens from other species who had been moved by the research. Within moments, dozens of beings were declaring their willingness to share in whatever punishment was decreed. Emperor Valdris watched this display with an expression that might have been satisfaction. You see, High Council, this is what I hope to prove. Humans do not abandon their own, even when it would be convenient, even when it would save them. They choose solidarity over safety. He looked at Day directly. I have no intention of punishing you, young human. The justice I spoke of is not the justice of revenge. It is the justice of truth. You broke laws that were designed to protect secrets and maintain power hierarchies. But those laws themselves are unjust when they prevent species from helping each other. So, I declare those laws void, and I offer my empire's full cooperation with Earth's medical research. The Emperor's skin shifted to a warm blue, the Velrosian expression of peace and goodwill. I propose a new accord. Earth and Velros become formal allies, sharing knowledge and resources freely. The medical research continues as a joint project, and in recognition of humanity's contribution, Earth receives its council seat not through political maneuvering, but through genuine merit. The head of the Galactic Council looked around the chamber, reading the mood of the assembled delegates. This proposal is unprecedented. We must vote. Then let us vote, the Emperor said, and let the galaxy decide if we continue to hoard our knowledge and die in isolation, or if we embrace cooperation and survive together. The vote took an hour. Species caucused, debated, argued. Some voted for traditional hierarchy and secrecy, but more voted for change, inspired by what they had witnessed. When the final tally was announced, the proposal had passed by a slim margin. Earth would have its council seat. The Velrosian Human Medical Alliance was officially recognized, and Day, Hana, and Jiwan were cleared of all charges. As the chamber emptied and delegates filed out, still arguing among themselves, Day found himself standing with Hana, both of them too exhausted to fully process what had happened. Your father planned all of this, Day said, still trying to wrap his mind around it. Not planned, Hana corrected. Hoped for. There is a difference. He created the conditions, but could not control the outcome. We chose our path, even though it was dangerous. And now? Now we do the hard part, she said. Now we prove that cooperation can work, that species can be stronger together than apart. Now we change the galaxy, one stubborn decision at a time. Day looked around the chamber, at the humans and Velrosians, and dozens of other species beginning to talk to each other with new openness. It was a beginning, fragile and uncertain, but real. He had come to this summit as an outcast. He was leaving as a bridge between worlds. And somehow, despite everything, that felt right. The celebration in the human quarters lasted through the night, but Day couldn't bring himself to join it. He sat alone in his small room, staring out the viewport at the stars beyond. Everything had changed in a matter of days, and he still couldn't quite believe it was real. A soft chime at his door pulled him from his thoughts. When he opened it, he found Jiwon standing in the corridor holding 2 cups of something steaming. "Figured you might want company," she said, offering him one of the cups. "It's tea, real earth tea, not the synthetic stuff from the station dispensers. I've been saving it for a special occasion." Day accepted the cup gratefully and gestured for her to come in. They sat by the viewport together, sipping tea in comfortable silence for a few minutes. "Lee apologized to me," Jiwon said finally. "Can you believe that? He actually admitted he was wrong about you, wrong about playing it safe, wrong about everything. I think seeing the Emperor support us broke something in his brain." "The Emperor didn't really support us," Day said quietly. "He used us. He needed someone to take the risk so he wouldn't have to. We just happened to be convenient? Maybe, but the risk was still real, and we chose to take it knowing what could happen." Jiwon looked at him over her teacup. "You knew from the beginning it might end badly. Why did you do it?" Day thought about Princess Hana sitting across from him in an empty corner of the banquet hall, about roses growing in a space station garden, about the weight of a data chip containing the hopes of an entire species. "Because nobody should have to suffer alone when help is possible," he said. "Because I spent 6 months being punished for telling the truth, and I was tired of watching good people die while bad systems protected themselves. Because someone looked at me like I was worth talking to, and I didn't want to let her down." Jiwon smiled. "That's very human of you. We're terrible at cost-benefit analysis when people we care about are involved." "Is that a weakness?" "The Velrosians probably think so, but I think it's the thing that makes us worth knowing." She finished her tea and stood up. "Get some sleep, Day. Tomorrow, the real work begins. The Council wants us to establish a formal research protocol, coordinate with Velrosian medical teams, set up testing facilities. We're going to be busy." After she left, Day tried to sleep, but couldn't. His mind kept returning to the trial, to Emperor Valdris's revelation that he had orchestrated everything from the shadows. It felt wrong somehow, manipulative, but he couldn't deny that it had worked. Another chime at the door, this one softer. When Day opened it, Hana stood in the corridor wearing a simple cloak that hid her distinctive crystalline features. Her skin glowed a nervous purple beneath the fabric. "May I come in?" she asked. "I know it is late, but I needed to speak with you away from official channels." Day let her in quickly, checking the corridor before closing the door. "Is everything all right? The guards didn't follow you, did they?" "I sent them away. They will be angry, but they will obey." She lowered her hood, and her skin shifted through several colors before settling on a warm blue. "I wanted to apologize. My father used both of us, for his political games. You risked your career and your life, and all along it was part of some grand manipulation." "You didn't know," Day said. "That does not make it better. You trusted me, and I led you into a situation that could have destroyed you." She moved to the viewport, staring out at the stars. In Velrosian culture, we have a concept called Keshtar. It means a debt of honor that cannot be repaid through simple gratitude. "I owe you Keshtar, Kang Day." "You don't owe me anything. We helped each other. That's how it's supposed to work." Hana turned to look at him, her skin brightening with emotion. "You do not understand. Among my people, Keshtar creates a bond that lasts a lifetime. It means I am responsible for your well-being as long as we both live. It means your enemies are my enemies. Your successes are my successes. It is not a small thing." Day felt the weight of what she was saying. "Is this some kind of obligation your culture forces on you?" "No, It is a choice I am making freely. She stepped closer to him, and in the dim light of his quarters, her crystalline skin seemed to glow from within. I told you before that I am tired of being treated as a political tool. With you, I feel like a person. You look at me and see Hana. Not Princess Hana, not the seventh in line, not a potential alliance through marriage, just Hana. I don't know how to be anything else, Day admitted. I'm not good at politics or seeing people as chess pieces. I just see people. That is why I want to stay. The words came out in a rush, as if she had been holding them back. The medical research will require close cooperation between our species. My father has asked me to serve as the Velrosian liaison. I have accepted, which means I will be working with the human delegation long term. Working with you. How long term are we talking about? Years, probably. The research is complex. The testing will be extensive, and if the treatment works, it will need to be distributed across 17 Velrosian star systems. Her skin flickered with uncertainty. Unless you object, I know this situation is complicated. Complicated is one word for it, Day said, but he was smiling. We started a diplomatic incident, nearly caused an interstellar war, and revolutionized cross-species medical research, all in less than a week. I can't imagine what we'll accomplish in years. Hana laughed, that same genuine sound that had shocked the banquet hall. We will either change the galaxy or destroy it. Perhaps both. They stood together by the viewport, watching the stars. The silence between them was comfortable, full of unspoken understanding. Can I ask you something? Day said. When you first sat at my table, what did you expect to happen? Honestly, I expected you to be like everyone else, afraid or ambitious or desperate to impress me. I thought I would sit for a few minutes, prove to myself that all beings are the same, and then leave. Her skin shifted to gold. The color Day was learning meant happy surprise. But you were different. You treated me like an ordinary person who happened to sit at your table. You offered me truth instead of flattery. It was the first real conversation I had experienced in years. I guess being nobody important has its advantages. I had nothing to lose by being honest. You are not nobody, Hana said firmly. Not anymore. Earth has a council seat because of you. My people have hope for a cure because of you. You changed the status of your entire species in the galactic community. We changed it, Day corrected. All of us together. You for having the courage to steal that data. Jiwan for her brilliant research. Even your father for creating a situation where cooperation was possible. And Lee for finally choosing to do the right thing, even if it took him too long to get there. Before Hana could respond, both their communicators buzzed with an urgent alert. Day pulled his out and read the message, his expression darkening. What is it? Hana asked. Security breach in the medical research lab? Someone tried to destroy Jiwan's data. He was already moving toward the door. Come on! They ran through the corridors, Hana's guards appearing from wherever they had been, waiting and following at a distance. When they reached the research wing, they found chaos. Human security forces were everywhere, and the lab entrance was damaged, the door mechanisms sparking and broken. Jiwan stood outside the lab talking to a security officer, her face pale with shock. When she saw Day and Hana, she rushed over to them. Someone broke in about 10 minutes ago, she said, her words tumbling out fast. They tried to wipe the data servers and destroy the physical samples, but the backup systems kicked in automatically, and security arrived before they could finish. Did they get anything? Day asked. Some preliminary research notes, but nothing critical. The main data is safe. She took a shaky breath. But Day, they knew exactly where to look. They had access codes. This wasn't some random vandalism. This was someone who knew what they were doing. A Velrosian security officer approached, his skin the dark red of barely controlled anger. We have reviewed the security footage. The saboteur was Velrosian, a member of the extremist faction that opposes cooperation with other species. He has been captured and is being interrogated. This won't be the last attempt, Hana said quietly. There are many in my empire who see this research as a betrayal of Velrosian superiority. They would rather die proud than live through cooperation with lesser species. And there are humans who think the same way in reverse, Ambassador Lee said, joining the group. He looked tired, older than he had that morning. I've been receiving messages all day from Earth. Some people are celebrating our council seat. Others are calling me a traitor for working with the Velrosians. Fear and pride are powerful motivators on both sides. Day looked around at the damaged lab, at the armed guards, now stationed at every entrance, at the frightened faces of the research team. This was what success looked like in the real world. Not a clean victory, but a messy beginning, full of opposition and danger. We need better security, he said, and we need to move the most critical research to a more protected location, maybe even conduct some of it on Earth, where saboteurs would have a harder time reaching it. I will assign my personal guard to protect Dr. Park and the other researchers, Hana said, and I will request that my father send his most trusted telepaths to screen everyone who has access to the research. We cannot allow fear to destroy what we have built. There's something else, Lee said hesitantly. The council has requested that you both appear before them tomorrow for an official ceremony. They want to present you with the Medal of Unity, the highest honor the galactic community can bestow. It's never been given to humans before. A medal won't stop saboteurs, Day said. No, but it will send a message. It will show the entire galaxy that cooperation is not just tolerated, it is celebrated. Symbols matter, Day. Sometimes they matter more than we want to admit. Hana touched Day's arm gently, her crystalline fingers cool against his skin. Lee is right. We must show strength, not just in security measures, but in our commitment to this path. If we hide or show fear, our enemies will be emboldened. Day wanted to argue, wanted to say that survival was more important than symbolism. But he looked at Ji-won, still shaken but standing straight, determined to continue her work. He looked at the research team members who had stayed despite the danger. He looked at Hana, who had risked everything for a chance to save her people. All right, he said finally, we'll go to the ceremony. We'll accept the medal. We'll show the galaxy that we're not backing down. He looked at each of them in turn. But we also triple security, move critical data off-site, and prepare for more attacks. Because this is just the beginning. We've kicked over the biggest anthill in the galaxy, and the ants are going to fight back. The group dispersed to handle their various tasks, leaving Day and Hana standing together in the damaged corridor. Around them, repair crews were already working to fix the broken door, the sounds of tools and welding filling the air. Are you afraid? Hana asked quietly. Terrified, Day admitted. But I was terrified when you first sat at my table, and that turned out all right. I figure if I survive that, I can survive this. We will survive it together, Hana said, and her skin glowed with determination. We have started something that cannot be stopped, not by saboteurs, not by extremists, not by fear. We have shown the galaxy what cooperation looks like. Now we must prove that it can endure. As they walked back through the corridors, Day realized that his life had become something he never expected. He was no longer the outcast diplomat sitting alone in corners. He was a symbol of human-alien cooperation, a target for extremists, and somehow, against all odds, a friend to an alien princess. It was terrifying and exhilarating in equal measure, and he wouldn't have changed it for anything. 1 year later, the Galactic Summit Station looked different. The changes were subtle but significant. Mixed species work groups moved through the corridors together. The dining halls no longer separated beings strictly by species. The medical research wing had expanded to 3 times its original size, with human and Velrosian scientists working side by side in clean white labs. Day stood in one of those labs now, watching Jiwon work with a Velrosian researcher named Kiros. The elderly Velrosian's skin was marked with the distinctive patterns of advancing telepathic degradation. But he moved with energy and purpose as he calibrated testing equipment. "How are the latest trials going?" Day asked. Jiwon looked up from her console, her face breaking into a tired but genuine smile. "Better than we hoped. The synthetic protein treatment is showing an 87% success rate in early-stage patients. Even some mid-stage patients are showing improvement. We're still working on cases of advanced degradation. But Day, this is actually working." Kiros' skin flickered with colors that Day had learned to recognize as hope mixed with cautious optimism. "5 months ago, I could barely function. The telepathic noise was overwhelming. Now, with regular treatments, I can work full days again. I can think clearly. Your species has given me my life back, human." "We gave each other our lives back," Day corrected gently. "This was only possible because both species were willing to cooperate." The lab door opened, and Hana entered carrying data pads and looking slightly harried. Her skin was a working blue, the color she displayed when focused on tasks. Over the past year, Day had learned to read her colors like a language, understanding her moods and thoughts through the shifting hues of her crystalline surface. "The latest distribution numbers from the outer systems," she said, handing a datapad to Jiwon. 200,000 Velrosians have begun treatment protocols. The demand is overwhelming our production capacity. "We're working on increasing synthesis rates," Jiwon assured her. "And Earth has agreed to build 3 more production facilities. We should be able to meet demand within 6 months." Hana nodded, then noticed Day standing by the window. Her skin shifted to a warmer shade, gold highlights appearing in the blue. "Do you have a moment? There is something I need to show you." They left the lab together and walked through corridors that had become familiar over the months. The station's permanent residents now greeted them by name, human and alien alike. The hostile stares and whispered warnings had mostly faded, replaced by curiosity and cautious respect. Hana led him to the restricted gardens, the place where their partnership had truly begun. The roses were in full bloom, their colors bright against the backdrop of alien vegetation. But there was something new. A second section had been added, filled with Velrosian plants that glowed softly in shades of purple and blue. "I have been working on this for months," Hana explained, guiding him through the new section. "I wanted to create a space where both our species' plants could grow together, a physical representation of what we have built." "It's beautiful," Day said, examining the unusual flowers that seemed to hum with faint bioluminescence. "Do they require special care?" "Some, yes. But I have discovered that human and Velrosian plants complement each other. The roses attract certain insects that help pollinate the Velrosian flowers. The Velrosian plants produce a compound that enriches the soil for the roses. They are stronger together than they would be apart." Day understood the metaphor. "Like us." "Like us," she agreed, her skin glowing with warmth. They sat on the stone bench where they had shared so many conversations over the past year. The garden had become their refuge, a place where they could be just Hana and Day instead of representatives of their species. "I received a message from my father this morning," Hana said after a moment. "He wants me to return to the Velrosian homeworld, permanently." Day felt his heart sink. "Because of the treatment success?" "Partially. The treatment is working so well that he wants me to oversee its distribution across all Velrosian worlds. But there is another reason." She turned to look at him directly. "My 3 oldest siblings have all begun showing severe symptoms of degradation. Even with treatment, they will likely never be fit to rule. My father is reconsidering the line of succession. He wants you to be Empress. He wants me to be a candidate for Empress. There is a difference. I would need to return home, establish myself in court politics, prove my capability to lead." Her skin shifted through uncertain colors. "It is everything I never wanted." but it might be the only way to ensure that the cooperation between our species continues. Day processed this information slowly. When would you leave? Within the month. But Day, I want you to come with me. The suggestion caught him completely off guard. Come with you? To the Velrosian homeworld? As Earth's official ambassador to Velros, the position would need to be created, but my father has already indicated he would approve it. You could continue our work from there, help bridge the gap between our peoples on a larger scale. She reached out and took his hand, the first time she had initiated such contact since that moment in the garden a year ago. I do not want to face this alone. I need someone I trust by my side. Hana, I'm not a trained ambassador. I don't know Velrosian court politics or customs. I'd probably cause a dozen diplomatic incidents in my first week. You would cause at least 3, she agreed, and there was amusement in her voice. But you would do so honestly, with good intentions, and that matters more than perfect protocol. My people need to see that humans can be trusted, that our alliance is built on genuine friendship rather than political convenience. You are living proof of that. Day stood up and walked to the edge of the garden, looking out at the station beyond. A year ago, he had been a disgraced diplomat, sitting alone in a corner, invisible to everyone who mattered. Now, he was being asked to serve as Earth's ambassador to one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. What does Ambassador Lee think about this? He supports it completely. He has already sent the recommendation to Earth's government. The approval process will take a few weeks, but he is confident it will be accepted. Day thought about Earth, about the life he had left behind when he came to this summit. He thought about his small apartment in Seoul, his few friends, his quiet existence. That life seemed like it belonged to a different person now. If I accept, I would be gone from Earth for years, maybe decades. Yes, but you would be making a difference on a scale few humans ever achieve. You would be shaping the future of human-Velrosian relations for generations to come. Hana stood and joined him at the garden's edge. I will not pretend this would be easy. There are still extremists on both sides who want our alliance to fail. You would face danger, political intrigue, and constant pressure, but you would not face it alone. A chime sounded from Day's communicator. He checked it and saw a message from Jiwon. Emergency session in 10 minutes. The council is calling a vote on something big. Hana received the same message. They exchanged glances and hurried from the garden toward the main council chamber. When they arrived, they found the hall filling with delegates from every species. The atmosphere was tense with anticipation. Ambassador Lee waved them over to the human section. What's happening? Day asked. The Korthan Republic has proposed something unprecedented, Lee said, his eyes bright with excitement. They want to establish the Interspecies Medical Cooperative, a permanent organization dedicated to sharing medical knowledge and resources across all species. Based on the success of our work with the Velrosians, the head of the Galactic Council called the session to order. The Korthan delegate, a reptilian being with iridescent scales, stood to present the proposal. For too long, we have hoarded our medical knowledge, each species protecting its secrets and letting others suffer. The Human-Velrosian Partnership has shown us a better way. They have saved millions of lives by choosing cooperation over isolation. I propose we extend this model across the entire galactic community. Let us create an organization where all species can share their medical discoveries, where the health of one becomes the concern of all. The chamber erupted in discussion. Some delegates supported the idea immediately. Others raised concerns about security, about protecting proprietary research, about the logistics of such a massive undertaking. A delegate from a silicon-based species stood up. This is idealistic, but impractical. Medical research requires resources, facilities, and personnel. Who would fund such an organization? We would, Emperor Valdris said, his voice cutting through the noise. He had arrived quietly during the proposal and now stood at the edge of the chamber. The Velrosian Empire will provide initial funding and facilities, not out of charity, but out of enlightened self-interest. The treatment that saved my people came from an unexpected source. How many other cures are waiting to be discovered if we simply share what we know? More delegates began to stand, offering their support or their species resources. The momentum was building, and Day could feel the energy in the room shifting towards something historic. The vote was called. Species after species voted in favor of the proposal. When the final count was announced, it had passed with overwhelming support. The interspecies medical cooperative would become reality. The chamber dissolved into celebration. Delegates who had barely spoken to each other a year ago were now shaking hands, touching appendages, exchanging contact information. The barriers that had seemed so solid were beginning to crack. Hana found Day in the crowd, her skin glowing through every color in the spectrum, unable to contain her joy. Do you see? Do you see what we started? We kicked over the anthill, Day said, remembering his words from a year ago, and instead of attacking, the ants decided to build something new together. Ambassador Lee approached them, smiling wider than Day had ever seen. The approval from Earth came through. Congratulations, Ambassador Kang Day. You're officially Earth's first diplomat to the Velrosian homeworld. The weight of the title settled on Day's shoulders, but it felt right. He looked at Hana, at the garden they had built together, at the medical research that was saving lives across 17 star systems. He thought about the young Velrosian researcher who had thanked him for giving his life back, about Jiwon's tireless work, about all the small moments of connection that had led to this larger change. I accept, he said. 3 weeks later, Day stood in the Galactic Summit Station's departure bay, preparing to board a Velrosian ship for the first time. His few belongings were already packed. The transfer of his diplomatic credentials was complete. He was ready to begin this new chapter, even though he had no idea what it would bring. Jiwon came to see him off, along with most of the human delegation. Even Ambassador Lee was there, looking oddly emotional. I know we got off to a rough start, Lee said, offering his hand, but I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished. You made me remember why I became a diplomat in the first place. To build bridges, not walls. Day shook his hand. Thank you, Ambassador. Take care of the research team. They'll be fine. Half of them are requesting transfers to Velros to continue working with you and Hana. Lee smiled. You're building something bigger than any of us expected. Jiwon hugged him tightly. Don't forget to send regular updates, and if you discover any interesting alien diseases, you know who to call. I'll probably discover a dozen diplomatic diseases, Day joked. Terminal foot and mouth syndrome, chronic protocol violation, acute inability to bow correctly. You'll be fine, she assured him. You've never needed protocol. You have something better. You have authenticity. The boarding call sounded. Day took one last look at the station that had been his home for the past year, at the place where everything had changed. Then he walked toward the ship where Hana was waiting, her skin glowing with anticipation. As the ship lifted away from the station, Day watched through the viewport as the massive structure grew smaller. He thought about the first day he had arrived, sitting alone in a corner, invisible and forgotten. He thought about a princess who had chosen to sit with him despite every warning, every protocol, every expectation. They had started with a simple conversation between two outcasts. Now, they were carrying a message of cooperation to an entire empire. The journey ahead would be difficult, full of challenges they couldn't predict, but they would face it together, human and Velrosian, proving that the strongest bonds are built not on similarity, but on mutual respect and genuine care. Somewhere below them, in the research labs of the station, scientists from a dozen species were working together on new treatments, new cures, new ways of understanding each other. The Interspecies Medical Cooperative was holding its first organizational meeting, with representatives from 30 different species, arguing enthusiastically about procedures and protocols. And in a small garden filled with roses and glowing alien flowers, the plants grew together, their roots intertwining beneath the soil, stronger together than they ever could have been. Apart, the galaxy was changing, one stubborn act of kindness at a time. And Kang Day, the disgraced diplomat who had started it all by simply treating another being with basic decency, was finally going where he truly belonged. Not alone in a corner, but at the center of a movement that was transforming how species saw each other. The ship accelerated toward the Velrosian homeworld, carrying two unlikely friends into an uncertain future. But uncertainty, Day had learned, was where the best stories began. And this story, their story, was just getting started. In the end, it came down to a simple truth that humans had known for millennia, but the galaxy was only beginning to understand. No one should have to sit alone when there are empty chairs and willing hearts. Sometimes, the greatest revolution starts with the smallest gesture of kindness. And sometimes, just sometimes, one conversation between two outcasts can change the entire galaxy. The stars wheeled past the viewport, countless worlds full of countless beings, all of them learning to see each other, not as competition, but as potential partners. It would take time, perhaps generations, but the foundation had been laid. Not through conquest or demands, but through two people choosing to see past fear and protocol to the person underneath. Hana joined Day at the viewport, her hand finding his in the dim light of the observation deck. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. After a year of conversation, collaboration, and shared struggles, they had developed a deeper form of communication than words. "Thank you," Hana said finally, her voice quiet, "for sitting with me that first day, for not being afraid." "I was terrified," Day admitted. "I just didn't let it stop me." That is courage, true courage, not the absence of fear, but the choice to act despite it. Her skin glowed warmly in the darkness. "My people are about to learn what that means, and you will teach them, one honest conversation at a time." The ship's engines hummed softly as they traveled through the void between stars, carrying two ambassadors toward a future neither could have imagined when they first met. Behind them, the Galactic Summit Station continued its work, proving every day that cooperation was possible. Ahead of them, the Velrosian Empire waited, ready or not, to learn that strength came not from standing alone, but from knowing when to accept an offered hand. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, on countless worlds, beings were learning that the scariest thing in the galaxy was not the unknown. It was the possibility of connection, the vulnerability of trust, the risk of opening yourself to another. But they were also learning that the rewards were worth the risk. Because in a galaxy full of differences, the one thing that united every sentient species was the desire not to be alone. And two outcasts, one human and one Velrosian, had shown them all that belonging was always just a conversation away. All you had to do was be brave enough to sit down and start talking.